Strange tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Strange Tales from Zhai. Today, I'm going to bring you a story called Lady Willow. Lady Willow was the daughter of a scholarly family in Zhongdu. Due to her slender figure and delicate waist, the locals fondly nicknamed her Lady Willow. From a young age, Lady Willow was exceptionally bright, well-versed in literature, and particularly fond of books on divination. She was introverted and reserved, never speaking ill of others, yet she was remarkably selective about her marriage prospects. Every time a suitor came calling, she would discreetly observe him but never found anyone to her liking. As the years passed, Lady Willow turned 19 and remained unmarried. Her parents, growing anxious, scolded her, saying, "Is there truly no man in this world worthy of you? Are you determined to become an old maid?" To this, Lady Willow calmly replied, "I am unwilling to entrust my future lightly to someone unworthy. I believe in letting destiny take its course. If the right person hasn't appeared yet, it may be due to fate. However, if you are truly worried, I will leave the matter entirely to your decision." Around this time, a scholar named Gao, hailing from a prominent family, heard of Lady Willow's beauty and intellect. He brought lavish betrothal gifts and proposed marriage. After their wedding, Gao and Lady Willow shared a deep and loving bond. Gao's first wife had passed away long ago, leaving behind a 5-year-old son named Changfu. Lady Willow treated Changfu as her own, caring for him with great devotion. When she visited her parents' home, Changfu would cry and insist on accompanying her, no matter how sternly Gao tried to dissuade him. A year later, Lady Willow gave birth to a son of her own, whom she named Changhu, a name symbolizing filial companionship. When Gao curiously asked about the meaning behind the name, she replied, "There's no special meaning. I simply hope he'll stay by our side for many years to come." Lady Willow was not skilled in embroidery and never bothered to learn, but she had an exceptional understanding of the family's landholdings and the taxes owed. She meticulously verified accounts, leaving no detail unchecked. Over time, she suggested to Gao, "Let me take charge of managing the household affairs. I want to see if I'm capable of handling them." Gao agreed, and within 6 months, the household was running smoothly under her management. Her efficiency and competence earned Gao's admiration, and he couldn't help but marvel at her abilities. One day, Gao had gone to a neighboring village for a drink when a tax collector came to the house, yelling and cursing outside. Lady Willow asked the servants to appease him with kind words, but the collector stubbornly refused to leave. With no other choice, Lady Willow hurriedly sent a young servant to fetch her husband. Gao rushed home and dismissed the collector. Laughing, he teased, "Lady Willow, it seems that even the cleverest woman isn't as useful as a foolish man in such matters." What was meant as a light-hearted joke deeply upset Lady Willow. She lowered her head and began to weep silently. Alarmed, Gao quickly held her hand and tried to comfort her with endless words of reassurance. Despite his efforts, Lady Willow's sorrow lingered for a long time. Even so, she did not abandon her role in managing the household. Instead, she became even more diligent, waking early and working late. She made sure to prepare the taxes for the following year in advance to avoid any future incidents with tax collectors. She also applied this foresight to the household's daily expenses, which brought greater financial stability and comfort to the Gao family. Seeing these changes, Gao was delighted. He teased her again with a playful smile, saying, "How meticulous Lady Willow is. Slender brows, a slender waist, a delicate gait, and most importantly, a thoughtful mind." Lady Willow responded with a gentle laugh. "How noble you are, my dear Gao. Noble in character, lofty in ambition, and outstanding in literature. I only hope your years are just as elevated." One day, someone in the village was selling a high-quality coffin. To everyone's surprise, Lady Willow insisted on purchasing it, even at a high price. When her money fell short, she borrowed from relatives and neighbors to make up the difference. Gao believed a coffin was not an urgent need and strongly opposed the decision, but Lady Willow held her ground and stored the coffin at home. Over the following year, an elder from a wealthy family in the village passed away, and they offered to buy the coffin at twice the price. Seeing a chance to profit, Gao urged Lady Willow to sell it. However, not only did she refuse, but when pressed for her reasoning, she began to weep silently. Though confused, Gao could not bring himself to force her, so he let the matter rest. Another year passed, and Gao turned 25. Lady Willow frequently warned him not to travel far, and if he came home late, she would send servants to search for him one after another. This led his friends to tease him about being overly coddled by his wife. One day, while drinking at a friend's house, Gao began feeling unwell and decided to ride home. On the way, he fell off his horse and died on the spot. It was the height of summer, but thanks to Lady Willow's foresight in preparing mourning clothes, bedding, and the coffin in advance, Gao was able to be buried promptly and properly. The neighbors marveled at Lady Willow's extraordinary ability to foresee events. The year Gao passed away, his eldest son, Changfu, was only 10 years old and had just begun learning to write. However, his father's death caused him to become spoiled and lazy. He refused to study and often ran off to play with the village children herding livestock. Despite Lady Willow's repeated attempts to persuade him, her scoldings and punishments had no effect. Finally, she called Changfu to her and sternly said, "Since you refuse to study, I won't force you. But a poor family cannot afford to raise an idle child. If you don't want to learn, change into work clothes and join the servants in their chores. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to use the whip on you, and you'll have only yourself to blame." With that, she made Changfu change into ragged clothes and sent him out to herd pigs. That evening, when he returned, she tossed him a coarse ceramic bowl and made him eat porridge with the servants. At first, Changfu was defiant, but as the days went on, he could no longer endure the hardship. He knelt in the courtyard, crying and begging Lady Willow for another chance to study. However, Lady Willow turned her back on him and coldly ignored his pleas. Seeing that his begging was futile, Changfu picked up the whip for herding pigs and left, weeping bitterly. As autumn drew to a close and the weather grew colder, Changfu had no warm clothing or shoes. The cold rain beat down on him, and he hunched his shoulders to keep warm, looking as pitiful as a beggar. The neighbors, seeing his plight, couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Whenever someone in the area remarried and their new wife became a stepmother, they would warn her not to imitate Lady Willow, often speaking of her with disdain. Although Lady Willow occasionally overheard such gossip, she paid it no mind. Eventually, Changfu could no longer endure such a miserable life and abandoned his pigs to run away. Lady Willow neither asked about his whereabouts nor tried to stop him, letting him leave as he pleased. Months passed, and Changfu, having nowhere else to turn, ended up begging for food. Haggard and emaciated, he finally returned home. Too ashamed to approach the house directly, he asked an elderly woman from a nearby village to deliver a message to Lady Willow on his behalf. When the woman conveyed his plea, Lady Willow coldly replied, "If he can endure 100 lashes, he may come back to see me. Otherwise, he's better off leaving for good." Upon hearing this from the elderly woman, Changfu rushed home and tearfully declared he was willing to take the punishment. Lady Willow asked him, "Have you finally realized your mistake?" Changfu replied, "I regret everything." With a sigh, Lady Willow said, "If you truly mean to repent, then there's no need for the beating. From now on, you must stay home and tend the pigs. If you run away again, I will not forgive you." However, Changfu continued to beg, "Please let me return to my studies. I am willing to take the 100 lashes." Lady Willow refused, but after much persuasion from the elderly woman, she reluctantly agreed. Lady Willow ordered Changfu to clean himself up, dress in new clothes, and join his younger brother, Changhu, in studying under their teacher. From that point forward, Changfu devoted himself to his studies with diligence, becoming a completely different person from the lazy boy he once was. 3 years later, he passed the imperial exam to become a Xiuzai. Yang Zhongcheng, a censor tasked with supervising officials, happened to read one of Changfu's essays and was so impressed that he provided Changfu with a monthly stipend of government-funded silver to support his continued education. Unlike Changfu, Changhu was not gifted in academics. Though he spent several years studying, he could barely write his own name. Lady Willow decided to have her younger son abandon his studies and focus on farming, but he was lazy and shirked his duties. Furious, Lady Willow scolded him, saying, "Scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants each have their own responsibilities. You're not suited for studying, and you refuse to work the land. Do you intend to starve to death in a ditch by the roadside?" With that, she gave him a severe beating. Afterward, Lady Willow sent Changhu to the fields to work alongside the servants. If he was even slightly late starting the day, she would harshly reprimand him. However, when it came to food and clothing, Lady Willow always reserved the best for Changfu. Although Changhu didn't dare confront his mother, he harbored deep resentment in his heart. After finishing his farm work, Lady Willow encouraged him to learn the art of trading, but he became addicted to gambling and visiting brothels. Whenever Changhu obtained a bit of money, he would squander it immediately. To cover his tracks, he fabricated stories about being robbed by bandits and blamed his misfortune, deceiving his mother. Eventually, Lady Willow saw through his lies and, in her fury, nearly beat him to death. It was only after Changfu knelt before her and offered to take the punishment in his brother's place that her anger subsided. From that point on, Lady Willow secretly assigned people to monitor Changhu whenever he went out. Although his behavior slightly improved, it was clear that his change was merely a facade. One day, Chang-hu asked his mother for permission to travel to Luoyang to do business with some merchants. In truth, he wanted to take the opportunity to escape her strict supervision and enjoy himself. Nervously, he feared Lady Willow might refuse. Surprisingly, she seemed not to suspect anything and immediately handed him 30 taels of silver, even preparing his travel supplies. Finally, Lady Willow gave Chang-hu an additional silver ingot and said, "This ingot was left by your grandfather when he was an official. It holds sentimental value and must not be spent frivolously. Keep it at the bottom of your chest as a reserve for emergencies. This is your first time venturing out to learn the ways of business. Don't expect to make a fortune, just make sure you don't lose all 30 taels." Before Chang-hu departed, Lady Willow repeatedly reminded him of her advice. He agreed to everything but secretly rejoiced, confident that his plan had worked. However, after Chang-hu arrived in Luoyang, he did not associate with the merchants he had traveled with. Instead, he chose to stay at the house of a famous courtesan named Li Ji. He spent over 10 days there, quickly running through his small amount of silver. At first, Chang-hu wasn't concerned about running out of money, thinking he still had the ingot of silver hidden away. But when he retrieved the ingot and broke it open, he was horrified to discover that the silver was fake. His face turned pale with shock. The madam of the brothel, seeing his distress, mocked him with cruel words. Chang-hu, now penniless and stranded in a foreign land, pleaded with Li Ji, hoping she would not throw him out of the brothel out of sympathy. However, it wasn't long before 2 men barged in and bound him with ropes. In his panic, Chang-hu asked why this was happening, only to learn that Li Ji had already stolen the fake silver and reported the incident to the authorities. Taken to the county yamen, Chang-hu could offer no defense for himself and was subjected to severe torture, nearly losing his life. In the end, he was thrown into jail, and because he had no silver to bribe the officials, he was repeatedly mistreated by the jailers. He could only beg the other prisoners for scraps of food, barely surviving. When Chang-hu left home, Lady Willow had told Chang-fu, "You must remember, 20 days from now, go to Luoyang for me. I have too much to do, and I might forget to tell you then." Chang-fu, puzzled, asked his mother why she had made such an arrangement. Lady Willow did not answer but quietly shed tears. Chang-fu, seeing his mother's sorrow, did not dare to ask further and quietly left. 20 days later, Chang-fu asked his mother again. Lady Willow sighed and said, "Your younger brother has always been frivolous and dissolute, just like you were when you skipped school. If I had not borne the bad name at that time, would you have achieved what you have today? People say I am heartless, but who knows that I wept into my pillow every night for you both. No one else can understand the pain in my heart." At this, Lady Willow could not help but burst into tears. Chang-fu stood silently by her side, not daring to ask anything more. Lady Willow cried for a while before continuing. "Because your younger brother still hasn't changed his wild and unruly ways, I deliberately gave him a fake ingot of silver to let him experience some setbacks. I suspect that he must have been locked up in prison by now. I know that Yang Zhongqing appreciates you. Go to him and ask for help on behalf of your brother. Once the misunderstanding is cleared up, your brother will be released. After going through this hardship, I believe he will repent." Worried about his brother, Changfu listened to his mother's words and immediately set off for Luoyang. Upon arriving and inquiring, he learned that Changfu had been in prison for 3 days. When Changfu finally visited the prison, he found that his brother was emaciated and haggard. Seeing his elder brother, Changfu broke down in tears and could not lift his head. Changfu, unable to stop his own tears, stood there sorrowfully. At the time, Changfu was greatly favored by Yang Zhongcheng and was well known among the officials. The county magistrate, upon learning that Changfu was Changhu's elder brother, did not dare to treat him lightly. When he found out that everything was a misunderstanding, he immediately released Changhu. After returning home, Changhu, fearing his mother's punishment, knelt before Lady Willow. Lady Willow looked at him and said, "So, you've finally gotten what you wanted, haven't you?" Changhu, tearful, did not dare to speak, and Changfu also knelt down, hoping their mother would forgive his brother. Seeing this, Lady Willow shouted, "Get up!" From that day on, Changhu resolved to turn over a new leaf, working diligently to manage the family affairs. Even though he occasionally slipped back into his old ways, Lady Willow did not scold him too harshly. Months passed, and Lady Willow no longer mentioned business matters. Changhu began to waver in his resolve and considered asking his mother for permission to resume trading, but he did not dare to speak up. Eventually, he confided his wish to his elder brother. Changfu tried to persuade their mother, and to his surprise, Lady Willow readily agreed. She also managed to gather a large sum of money to give to Changhu. 6 months later, Changhu had doubled his profits. That autumn, Changfu passed the provincial exams, and 3 years later, he passed the imperial exams as well. By that time, Changhu had become a moderately successful merchant, amassing tens of thousands of silver. A former resident of Sichuan, who had lived in Luoyang, claimed to have seen the renowned Lady Willow. Though she was already in her 40s, she appeared to be in her 30s. Moreover, Lady Willow lived simply and frugally, just like an ordinary person. At the end of the story, the author adds this commentary. After the publication of Black-Hearted Talisman, the evil deeds of stepmothers abusing their stepchildren have been widely spread, and the story of using reed flowers to make cotton clothes for her former husband's son has become a typical example. From ancient times to the present, the wickedness of stepmothers has remained unchanged, and such elders indeed provoke deep regret. However, some stepmothers, to avoid public criticism, tend to go to the opposite extreme, ignoring or indulging their stepchildren's behavior. How is this approach any different from those stepmothers who abuse their children? If a stepmother were to beat and educate her own biological children every day, people would not consider her cruel. But as soon as she places even slight restrictions on her stepchildren, others would immediately step in, gossiping and pointing fingers. However, women like Lady Willow, who treated her stepson Changfu with strictness, did not have a heart of stone. Had it not been for the way she also disciplined her biological son later on, how could the world have understood her good intentions? What is most admirable is that Lady Willow did not care about the gossip of others nor fear bearing a bad reputation. In the end, she had 2 sons. One became a wealthy man, and the other, a high-ranking official with fame spreading far and wide. A person like Lady Willow, not only a woman but even among men, would be considered an outstanding individual. All right. Today's tale, Lady Willow, concludes here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave your comments and share with others. See you again in the next issue.